Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP discovered their spouse was cheating on them through various pieces of evidence, including explicit text messages and intimate encounters with a coworker. Despite the emotional turmoil, they decided to divorce their spouse, who initially tried to deny the affair. He sought therapy and relied on the support of friends and family to cope with the trauma. They also emphasized the importance of self-care and social interaction, particularly as an introvert. He ends with a message of encouragement to others who may be experiencing similar challenges, emphasizing the importance of self-worth and empowerment. Now let's get into the story. At that point, cheating started to climb positions on the list of reasons for her behavior. Yet it was still far from the top. Yes, I was still dumb and blind. On another occasion, I found her laundry. Yes, I'm not proud, but desperation makes you do things you never thought you would. The panties she wore the day and night she went out for coffee or dinner or company party, I don't recall. It had a lot of what I thought was vaginal fluid. And I mean a lot, which was not normal. No one was having that much fun at work or when hanging out with friends. That's when it became clear she was cheating on me. I felt like my heart was pulled out of my chest. I had found a proverbial gun with the bullets, but still in my mind it wasn't a smoking gun. There was still a 1% chance that it wasn't real. She could have been masturbating, right? No need for a third party to intervene. So I decided to try and peek at her phone. It was really hard because in my mind that was an awful thing. If you reached that point, you were done. There would be no trust, there would be nothing left. I even got the chance. But back down at the last minute, I had a talk with a friend who told me he too was cheated on. He never mentioned it before and that the behavior of my wife was similar to his cheating girlfriend. That settled it. I finally got the opportunity to peek at her phone, and there it was in all of its glory. Thousands of texts exchanged between her and this coworker who was having a difficult time because his mother had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Another low blow. My grandmother suffered from deep Alzheimer's disease for about 10 years. Until she passed away, so she knew that was a soft spot for me. It was also full of sexual talk, pictures in underwear from them both, everything. They had been at it for at least a year until I found out. One damn year, the same time as our dead bedroom, and the same duration of her torturing me. By denying affection, she not only chose to cheat on me, but also to be loyal and faithful to him. As if being with her husband was wrong and a betrayal of the other guy. Well, I was glad she did it. At least I didn't have to battle with the thoughts of having had sex or even touching her before or after he had sex with her. As soon as I found this undeniable evidence, I was crushed. But at that point, I was already expecting it and didn't crumble immediately. I decided I would leave her as soon as possible. My situation was the best one could be in when in that situation no kids, no house owned, and no lease in my name. I could just pack my things and leave as soon as I found a place for myself. I also decided I would not let her know what I had found out and more importantly, how I found out. So I kept my composure and pretended like nothing happened. I even helped her with her dress as she was preparing to go to a big party event at her company. And I already knew that was not the main event for that night. He would be there as well, so naturally they would do what adults do. About an hour later she left and I finally could grieve, cry, yell, get mad, and let all my emotions out. I called my friend, read more of their texts, created this, read it, spent about 4 hours writing my story, and posted it on Dead Bedrooms, which I had been following for the previous 6 months when I thought our problem was just a dead bedroom. I want to thank all the people that supported me at that time, reached out with advice and more importantly, pointed me to useful resources such as this community, which I have been following since. Of course, I couldn't sleep and I stayed up until she arrived home at around 7 in the morning. Of course, she told me her group of friends was the last to leave the party and that it was great. You and I know what was really great. In one of her texts to him later that day, she said to him, the after party left my thigh bruised because of the handbrake. Almost all cars in my country have hand brakes between the driver's and passenger seat. So it's clear what kind of an afterparty it was that happened on the weekend. During the week, I kept playing dumb while I was meeting with lawyers, found a place to live, and arranged for my mail to be forwarded to a new address. All the while, she stayed at work late. Another peek of her messages showed that she wasn't working, but instead waiting on the other guy for another round of 6. In the previous 2 weeks, they had had 6 more times than we had in the previous 18 months of our marriage. Way to go, wife. By Friday I had everything ready to move. As soon as she went to her job, my family came by and helped pack all of my things and transport it to my new place. At the end of the day, I sent her a message saying you know what you have been doing. I left the house and I'm filing for divorce and immediately blocked her and called her mother to tell her about the divorce. I didn't explain why, I just said her daughter knew what she had been doing and should explain. My wife kept trying to call me without success. She called my mother but she never answered. In the previous 10 years, she had never called my mother. She even called my friends, but they were already in the loop and never answered her either. She then proceeded to text me of the same app she was using with her affair partner and even accused me of being brainwashed by a former coworker of mine and leaving to go living. With her ridiculous accusation and a classic example of projection, I blocked her. I only got to talk with her 2 more times. The next Wednesday, I called her to tell her the lawyer had sent a letter with all the information pertaining to the divorce. She tried to play the lost wife card who didn't understand what was happening and why I was doing this. She kept crying, saying she had always fought for us and that I never had, and that she had been thinking that we should go to marriage counseling for some time. I think most of us are familiar with all of this. The thing is, I almost fell for it. After that call, I started to doubt what I knew was undeniably true. Yet my broken and beaten heart started to doubt and wanted to believe in all her crap. Luckily, I had copies of their messages and read some of them to get real. Yes, it was pain shopping, but I needed that to keep myself focused and to not back down. They basically got to know every parking lot suitable for car 6 around our house, his house, and their work. They most likely did it in their work office buildings. And the most hurtful revelation was that they regularly did it in our house, in our bed, living room, kitchen, everywhere. The last time I spoke with her was about a month later, when we signed the divorce. At that time, she tried to project this cold, distant, and superior persona. At the end, I told her that I knew everything she had done with the affair partner. Her response was something like this: what I did was only to get a reaction from you. I think she didn't fully understand what I knew. Perhaps she even thought I was just pissed at all the attention non-sexual she gave to the other guy. The next weekend, I met with her parents and told them most of what she had put me through and about the affair, although without revealing the messages, of course. They had a hard time believing their daughter could do such horrible things. Doing so was telling her, "This is how I got you. Next time, be more careful and hide your secret life better." But I didn't show them the evidence. That was the last time I had contact with anyone in her family. How did I deal with all the trauma? I kept going to individual counseling. I still am today. I relied on my friends and family. I never hid her cheating. Doing so would be collaborating. I let my emotions out. Every time I felt like crying, I cried. It came in waves. One moment I was fine, the other I felt the brutal shock of everything. Once again, just let it all out. It'll pass and get better. I haven't had one such episode for months, but I know I might have one anytime. And it's okay. I started doing things I felt like doing. Mostly going to concerts and watching plays at theaters. Damn COVID-19. Going by myself without other people. It felt great not to miss out on something you think you might like. Just because you don't want to go alone and your friends don't feel like going. Go to events even if you don't feel like going. It's an opportunity to meet new people and get yourself out of your bubble. Yes, it won't cure you, but the boost you get from just talking to new people, even if just for a few minutes, is wonderful. Make an effort to interact more with other people. I'm an introvert, so this is a hard and important thing for me to do. The only way to get better at talking and being with and around other people is, well, by doing it. Has it been easy? Hell no. It's a struggle, but with time it gets better. I confess I was doing much better before COVID-19 hit my country and shut everything down. In the past 3 months, I felt like going backwards in my recovery because all things I did to cope with the situation were not available. Concerts and plays were canceled. Parties and events were canceled. Friends and gatherings were forbidden. I moved to my parents' house to be with them when we were ordered to stay at home. Despite being in a really privileged position, sometimes I felt trapped and suffocated without being able to take a walk in a beautiful garden and take a break from the people in my house. We love each other, but we all need our own space. As a consequence, I found myself going back to all the things she did more often, and it has been hard. Thank you all for reading this far. You deserve a medal. I also want to thank everyone who reached out to me in my previous posts and comments. Knowing an internet stranger cares might seem unimportant, but it really can be the difference between being stuck in a miserable mindset and turning yourself around and coming back with renewed strength. I hope my story can help someone. I know it's hard, but it's possible to break all the emotional abuse. You are worth it on your own. You don't need anyone else to tell you that you're worth it. Take back your power and live for yourself. You can do it. Today's second story. In this story, OP's wife went for a gynecologist appointment but didn't respond to his texts for hours afterward. When she finally opened up, she revealed the doctor had behaved inappropriately during the appointment. The man considered legal action, but his wife's secretive behavior and suspicious messages on her iPad led him to investigate. He tracked her to a restaurant where she met another man, confirmed their affair with evidence, and confronted her. The wife, caught in the act, faced public humiliation, while the doctor had his license suspended. Now let's get into the story. I was 35 and my wife was 29 when she scheduled her second ever gynecologist appointment. She usually texts me constantly, and before she went into the doctor's office, she let me know that's what she was doing. But on this day, she didn't reply to any of my texts until 3 hours after her appointment was over. When I got home from work, she was keeping herself busy by doing laundry and wouldn't look me in the eye. I finally got her to face me and asked why she was behaving differently. She broke down crying immediately and told me she felt uncomfortable with the doctor earlier that day. I asked her for more details and she said he'd strapped her feet down in the stirrups and used his mouth for things other than talking. I freaked out. I started pacing and yelling, planning out how I was going to bring this guy down. It didn't take long for me to ask my wife if anything else happened, and she hesitated to tell me that. Yes, something else happened. He had intimate with her while she was strapped to the table. She still looked upset, but it was like she let her emotional mask slip. I could tell that she wasn't completely upset about it, but wanted me to believe she was. I cried and let her believe I didn't see through it. Maybe it was because I couldn't accuse my wife of willingly sleeping with her doctor. Instead, I started talking about getting a lawyer so that we could sue him for malpractice. As soon as I mentioned this, my wife looked embarrassed and nervous. She said we didn't need to do that, she just wouldn't go back to him again. I told her that was crazy talk and he needed to pay for his crime. What if he abused other women? She looked at me dumbfounded, like she hadn't thought of me saying that and didn't know how to respond. The next day, I was surprised that my wife felt well enough to go to work. I refused to go and planned on finding a lawyer. Just as I was about to call one, my wife's iPad binged. Curiosity took hold of me and I looked at it. There was a notification on her WhatsApp from someone she programmed as L. They made arrangements to meet at an address out of town. In the last hour, she was scheduled to work. She told this person she'd be able to get off early with a winky face, and when she was asked if she told anyone about yesterday, she swore she didn't. This scared the shit out of me. I was instantly certain that my wife was hiding something. I checked the clock and realized I had hours before they were going to meet. I called a divorce lawyer to talk about what my wife told me and what my best course of action might be. He agreed that it seemed odd and that I should do whatever I can to find proof of what she was up to. He suggested I hire a PI, but since I had an address unbeknownst to my wife, I decided to go there myself and catch her red-handed. On the way, I picked up a GPS tracker. I was trembling as I waited in my car in the parking lot of a fancy restaurant. They probably picked this place to meet so that they might not be recognized. My wife arrived first, looking nervous. She got a table for two visible through the front window and waited. I fought back emotions as I continued waiting. Soon a wealthy-looking man arrived in a nice car. He entered the restaurant and joined my wife at the table. I cried for a few minutes before getting out and placing the tracker on my wife's car. I got closer to the window but stayed behind a car while I took pictures. They talked and ate without a care in the world. I sat in my car again until they each got into their cars and my wife followed him while I followed her at a distance. They arrived at a hotel and I drove around the other side so I would be seen. I paced outside for a minute, wondering how long I needed to wait so they wouldn't see me. I stood by the automatic doors and took a picture through the glass without activating the motion detector. They were standing at the counter checking in. It was a very clear picture and I turned away to throw up. It took every ounce of power I had to resist being him right then and there. I moved my car to the front parking lot far from the entrance, zoomed in on my camera, and set it on my dashboard, pointing directly at the entrance of the hotel. I started recording after 10 minutes, and a while after that, they both emerged hand in hand. They kiss each other goodbye and get into their own cars along with the screenshots of their conversation. I had enough proof that they were having an affair. I got divorce papers and returned home after my wife. She greeted me with the familiar warmth I knew like nothing was wrong. In response, I'll slap the divorce papers across her face. She gasped and demanded answers. I told her I was the one that deserved answers and that I had proof she was having an affair. She gasped and covered her mouth. All the color drained from her face and she asked me what I was talking about. I told her I didn't need to tell her what I knew, she just needed to tell me the truth. She tried to say she didn't know what I was talking about, but she couldn't look me in the eye or speak louder than a whisper. Her behavior gave her away completely. I threatened to post a picture of her and the doctor on social media if she didn't come clean. I started recording her as she started panicking. She said there was no way I had a picture and stared at me in disbelief. I assured her I did and showed it to her on the camera. She tried to grab it from me as quickly as she could and we fought over it. I got it back and immediately locked myself in the bedroom with the evidence. When she stopped screaming and pounding on the door, I told her to sign the divorce papers and get out of the house. If she didn't want me to post the proof I had, she would listen to me. She sobbed loudly for a few minutes before leaving the door. I wasn't sure what she was doing or if she left, but I posted my proof on her social media anyway. While she was being judged heavily online, she was trying to find someone. Months later, she was staying at miscellaneous places, sometimes abandoned buildings, all while we went to court. Her doctor's license was suspended, and he moved away. Since there were no witness testimonies, no charges were pressed against him. My ex is still homeless, regretting the short-lived affair that cost her everything. I've resisted any urge to help my ex out in any way. I started attending counseling sessions and took up a new hobby. I've chosen to share my story because this stuff actually does happen to people, and I don't want people to feel as hopeless as I did at first. Things can and do get better. Awesome job.